The comments below my recent Clock videos suggest that Time Stop spell effect definitely isn't the most obvious one, at least not in terms of action economy. Not a lot of spellcasters ever get to use it, and even fewer that do often skip it in favor of other level 9 spells. In this video I will do my best to clarify how the spell works and talk a bit more about other spells that synergize well with it. In essence, Time Stop is no different than any other spell out there. It has all the standard spell information, but three of these matter the most for what I'm about to focus on: casting time, duration, and spell effect. You use your standard action to cast a spell, and then the spell effect occurs instantaneously as the duration suggests. But the spell effect itself is kinda weird. It gives you 2 to 5 extra turns. Now these extra turns throw the standard action economy on your turn completely out of whack and prevent the YouTube algorithm from displaying any videos other than mine on your home screen. Just make sure you don't interact with anything else other than like, subscribe, and bell icons button down below this video. Maybe share it with a friend or leave a comment, but that's about it. We don't want Time Stop to end prematurely, right? On a more serious note, the easiest way to explain how Time Stop's additional turns and their corresponding action economy fit into your standard turns action economy is, well, to simply consider all of these extra turns, as nothing but an effect of the spell itself. I mean, that's what they truly are. They are just part of Time Stop's spell effect. On your turn, you spend your action to cast Time Stop, and its effect resolves instantaneously, giving you 1d4 plus 1 extra turns, all of which happen as part of an action used to cast the spell. After those turns are over, you still have the rest of your standard turns action economy to use. Your bonus action and your free object interaction, as well as maybe even your reaction if the trigger occurs. Even if you use Sorcerer's Quicken meta magic, for example, which changes the casting time to a bonus action, the extra turns given to you by Time Stop are still just an instantaneous effect of the spell. You still have your standard action left after the Time Stop ends, which you can use to attack or cast a cantrip due to the bonus action spellcasting rule limitation. It's also important to remember that these additional turns resulting from Time Stop all come with their own standard turn action economy, so you have your action, you have your bonus action and movement available to you on each of those extra turns. But what do you even do with all those extra turns in the first place, besides the obvious extra movement benefit to either get farther or closer to the enemies, as well as specific class and subclass features I'm not gonna cover in this video cause there are simply way too many of them? You can, of course, cast a bunch of other spells. An important factor to consider is concentration, since you can only have one active. So non-concentration spells are inherently more valuable, with some exceptions of course. While I won't talk about all of the potential candidates, I will hopefully give you enough ideas to go out and formulate your own plans for the next time you cast Time Stop. Let's start with buffs first. If you're one of those sloppy mages who constantly forgets to cast mage armor beforehand, congrats, Time Stop just bought you enough time to fix that error. Mirror Image and Blur are probably not the best spells at high levels due to prevalence of special senses circumventing illusion magic, but if you've depleted all of your better options, casting one of these does make some sense. Darkness is a bit of an underrated spell in my opinion, though a lot of races get it by default, so maybe that's why. Blink's only downside is the fact that you probably won't be around to cast counterspell, but you're also going to be out of harm's way 50% of the time. Freedom of movement makes a lot of sense too, because if you're dealing with enemies who already express desire to grapple and restrain you, this is the spell to deal with that. Fire Shield is situational, but a lot of enemies deal fire and cold damage, so it will probably come in handy more often than not. Greater invisibility is a good thing on attack roll oriented mages such as Sorlogs, but not really that good on mages that don't focus on attack rolls that much. Otiluke's Resilient Sphere guarantees your survival, though it also makes you harmless to enemies. Globe of Invulnerability fixes that last problem though, and has saved my ass recently in a level 21 shot against a powerful spellcaster. True Seeing or See Invisibility makes sense if your DM likes using sneaky enemies often. Jump and Long Strider can be used in challenging environments to get around the battlefield easier. Water Breathing and Water Walk are obvious choices for when you find yourself in the middle of the lake or an ocean for whatever reason. Mind Blank is really useful against Mind Flayers and other psychic abusers. Crown of Stars gives you something to do with your bonus action for the next 7 rounds. I don't particularly like Tenser's transformation personally, but a lot of people swear by it, so there must be at least some truth to their claims. I mean, I guess there is, right? I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. Sometimes you might find yourself in a pickle requiring either repositioning yourself, manipulating your environment, or both. Dimension Door, Far Step, Misty Step, and other short to mid-range teleport spells all make sense as panic buttons and mobility boosters. This spell magic should be available to you anyway, just don't forget to use it against illusions and other spells affecting your immediate environment. Disintegrate can blow a hole and create a passage through almost any material out there. Passwall is a bit more elegant way to do that, while Stone Shape accomplishes a similar purpose too, though it's restricted to just one type of material, as the name suggests. Arcane Lock and Knock are low-key amazing in dungeons full of doors, gates, and other objects with locks on them. Wall of Ice, Wall of Fire, and other wall spells can also be beneficial as control options in a lot of situations. Fly is obvious, no need to explain that one, though concentration is definitely a problem. Programmed Illusion can be super powerful, though it's also iffy because it depends both on your creativity as well as DM's interpretation of your creativity and willingness to adhere to roleplay instead of just blatantly metagaming around it. If you've been wondering why I still haven't mentioned Delayed Blast Fireball, it's because I've been kinda waiting to do combo type mechanics separately. Force Cage is the main ingredient for this to work, for most of these, as it traps the creatures inside and synergizes with not just Delayed Blast Fireball but also Sickening Radiance, Cloud Kill, and any other spell that doesn't immediately affect other creatures, which, as we know, if you do that, time stop ends. Bigby's Hand and especially Faithful Hound make sense in this context too, though I'd leave the Hound for the very end of time stop due to it attacking automatically on each of your turns. I mean, you don't have control over it, so you need to cast it last. Contingency works with every spell I did and will mention in this video, as you can make it trigger off of the time stop casting action itself. If you can't be bothered coming up with these clever plays, however, and just want to blast shit into oblivion, Otiluk's Freezing Sphere can be contained within a small ice globes as the spell describes, so if you spend all of your 6th, 7th, and 8th level spell slots making these small ice globes, a lot of d6's worth of cold damage will be rolled after the time stop ends. Let's just say it like that, right? Just make sure you use a sling, otherwise you'll get frostbite too. Last but not least, Simulacrum is a no-brainer with like all of these mechanics. If you have enough gold or a DM generous enough to give you the boon of high magic, a copy of you with half hit points can also cast time stop. So it's like a double trouble. You just make sure you have all of your time stop turns pre-planned, because I watched the dude fumble through this for an hour during an online session. It completely killed the flow and we didn't even finish the combat encounter as half the players fell asleep or just logged off. It goes without saying that time stop can be a cause of argument and discussion at the table, as well as flat out confusion when no one, including the DM, knows how it interacts with certain other spells. Wall of Force probably sounds like a spell to use during time stop's additional turns because it's kind of similar to Force Cage, but if you read a bit more into it, it says that it either floats in the air or rests on the solid surface. Does this mean it physically touches the feet of all ground-bound creatures trapped inside of it, or any other appendage that touches the ground? At my table we ruled it as a yes, but I can also accept arguments against it, so best talk this out with your DM and see what's up. Flying creatures, you can definitely do Wall of Force, but at my table we rule Wall of Force as ending time stop because the feet and other appendages of creatures that are touching the ground upon which Wall of Force is being erected upon means that those creatures are being physically touched, affected, interacted with, therefore time stop ends. Anti-magic field is obviously contentious because despite time stop's instantaneous duration suggesting the magic is momentary and therefore cannot be suppressed via anti-magic field or cast dispel magic on it, I still find it a bit counterintuitive with regards to a field that prevents any magical effect from being active. This is definitely up to DM's interpretation in regards to rules as written, rules as intended, rules as fun, so talk it out beforehand instead of arguing at the table. Control winds and other wind spells can also be iffy because what if you blow a poisonous gas into an enemy? Does that mean you're affecting the enemy and therefore your time stop ends prematurely? Hard to come to a definitive answer here. I think it's a case-by-case basis. Animate objects doesn't seem like a problem at first, at least, you know, you're animating objects, you're not animating creatures, but you are creating new temporary creatures, you know, constructs, and issuing commands to them. So does that mean, you know, that the time stop ends because you're affecting creatures? creatures. I mean, you're affecting objects, but those objects are becoming creatures, so therefore you're affecting creatures. I honestly don't know whether it would end time stop. I haven't given it enough thought. I'm just kind of like throwing out my ideas out there. Locate creature is a bit confusing to me too. On one hand, you're not damaging the creature or casting some harmful spell at it, but if the creature is hiding successfully from you and you use this spell to find it during one of your time stop turns, doesn't it effectively mean you're affecting it in some way? I'd err on the side of yes, but let me know in the comments if you think the answer is no. This video is already way too long for my taste, so I will end it here. If you want me to do an analysis of time stop in relation to various class and subclass features, feats and racial traits, make sure you spend all of your time stop turns on like, subscribe and bell icon buttons down below. That will certainly tell both me and the YouTube algorithm that you want more of this type of content. This video is sponsored by Historica Arcanum, a soon-to-be launched Kickstarter bringing a plethora of new character customization options, mainly the profession system, a campaign set in 19th century Istanbul, as well as tools for DMs who want to run 5th edition D&D campaigns in alternate history and history-inspired settings. If you're interested and don't want to miss out on the early bird discounts, all the links you need are in the description below this video. Until then, the video script text file for this video is available for download on my Patreon page under the Fireball tier. It's not mandatory, it's 100% optional, especially in these troubled, globally challenging economic times, but if you do find the Patreon perks worth the trouble, worth your time and worth your money, consider supporting my efforts there. Special shout out to all my current patrons, thank you for your continued support. I have 2 new characters almost ready to be turned into videos on this channel, as well as Tasha updates for a bunch of my older builds, so stay tuned for those as well. With everything said and done, MinMax Munchkin out, talk to you soon.